Welcome to the exclusive world of BPI Preferred, where you're taken care of financially, no matter your preference. You have a relationship manager that knows you and gives you personalized service with priority handling, even over the phone. We introduce you to a diverse range of privileged experiences. Feel the care. Feel the privilege. BPI Preferred.
What if your everyday is easier? What if your tasks are faster? What if you never have to chase due dates ever? What if your life is safer? What if your dreams are higher? What if kaya mo na? GCash gives you secure payments, real-time money transfers, accessible financial services, exclusive deals, and a full suite of business solutions para kaya mo na sumabay sa takbo ng buhay. Kaya mo na to stay connected. Kaya mo na magbayad anytime, anywhere. Kaya mo na mag-buy and sell. Kaya mo na to get exclusive deals. Kaya mo na magpera padala. Kaya mo na gawing safe ang future. Kaya mo na abutin ang pangarap. Kaya mo na makatulong, magbigay ng pag-asa. Kaya mo, GCash mo.
Sa pagpatak ng ulan, sa pagsubok na dumaraan, may tapang kang harap, lilipad kang may pangarap. Lilipad kang may pangarap.
Kailan na'y di mag-iisa, susulong ka ng may kasama, may tapang kang harap.
Lilipad kang may pangarap. Lilipad kang may pangarap. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na, ngayon na.
Sumpay sa pagbabago,
harapin ang bagong mundo. Simula na ng bukas. Simula na ng bukas ngayon.
Stand out with Copper Mask, the mask of the stars.
Yes, we know there's more to do. Bigger things we can do. We'll make things happen, you and I. Yes, we've hit all our dreams, make them real. Oh, oh, oh. Para sa bayan, gagawin. Ibubuhos lahat ng galing. Kung tulong-tulong kayang gawin. Para sa bayan, gagawin.
QC is pro-business. In QC, we promote, we provide, and we protect businesses. The location of choice for investors and entrepreneurs.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Business World one-on-one interview. Here, we hope to gain valuable tips as we beat our own paths out of this crisis that was caused by the pandemic. Joining us to share the story of how his group has been innovating through this crisis is the young captain of a conglomerate that is into the businesses of property development, leisure entertainment and hospitality, food and beverage production and distribution, quick service restaurants, and infrastructure. Mr. Kevin Andrew Tan, Chief Executive Officer of Alliance Global Group Incorporated. Welcome to this interview.
Hi, Willie. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with a bit of an overview. A little more than a year ago, you announced a 5-point recovery strategy, I think that's what you called it, that centers on new revenue streams for the entire group. How has that been proceeding among your various units? Let's start with that.
Last year we came up with the 5-point strategy, mainly sustainability and employee welfare, adaptability, digitalization and innovation, earnings diversity, and financial flexibility. So, a lot has happened since then. So let's start maybe with the employee welfare and sustainability. I think we've made significant progress in this particular initiative, from embarking on a company-wide testing program for COVID. Today, we have already successfully vaccinated a vast majority of our employees. For the Mega World and Emperador Group, for example, we have vaccinated almost 100% of our employees. For travelers, we have actually vaccinated 90% of our employees. And for Golden Arches Development Corporation or McDonald's Philippines, we have actually vaccinated more than 80% already of our employees. On adaptability, that's an initiative that I guess takes a wide spectrum of things. From the way we migrated our headquarters operations to a full work from home. As you know, it was quite a challenging feat in the beginning because the lockdown restrictions happened so quickly. But I think we've adapted to technology quite well. And now we are able to go from full work from home to hybrid work from home when lockdown restrictions are lifted seamlessly. And now without any lag. So we're quite used to it, having had gone through three ECQs already. We've also been very adaptive in the way we make our products. Everything from construction, for example, to even manufacturing of our products, both here and abroad, as well as even down to having to cook our food within our restaurants. Everything down to supply chain. All of that has been severely adjusted to take into account the many restrictions that have been imposed since last year. And lastly, on that note, and I think this is one of the more exciting ones, well, both challenging and exciting, is the way we also interact with our customers have all been severely, again, changed and I guess disrupted. At the beginning, it was very challenging, but there were also lots of pockets of opportunities. For example, within our communities, we have developed a way to create an app to be able to connect our entire townships, and all the stakeholders within it. We call this iFay, which essentially is a community app. Aside from that, in the beginning of last year until this year, we've actually done almost 100% of our selling of our condominium products online. Also, our malls now have personal butler service and delivery service as well. So those were, at first very challenging, but then end up becoming very exciting. On other initiatives that we've done, we've also invested in quite a number of platforms. to be able to reach our customers better during this time pandemic. One of the platforms that I'm referring to is Picaroo, which actually has helped our retail partners in our malls thrive during this time of pandemic. But it's also been a great help also to the industry in general. We have more than 1,000 brands now in the app, and we're serving a vast majority of customers here in Metro Manila and in neighboring cities as well. Aside from that, we've also invested in a company called Boozy.ph, which is the #1 liquor delivery app now in the country. This has helped also us bring our products to people's homes during lockdowns, restrictions. And then as far as aside from this, McDonald's has also invested in its own app, which is now a great contributor to its business. Another note, another exciting pillar of our strategy is our earnings diversity. And if I may say so, this is really the singular biggest reason for AGI's resilience during this pandemic. I guess it's our ability to be able to leverage on all our different businesses and different sources of earnings, and our ability to refocus our business to adapt to the ever-changing times. Case in point is our Emperador business. No? During the pandemic, our global business has grown tremendously. Our whiskey business, for example, grew 200% in China, and it also grew about 60% in North America or US. Our brandy business grew by 60% in Mexico, and if anything, it has shown tremendous value to Emperador as a company. For MegaWorld, for our property business, since the beginning of the pandemic until today, all of our project launches were done outside Metro Manila, and we're seeing surprising growth in places like Iloilo, Bacolod, Cavite, and Pampanga. And we continue to build on our business outside Metro Manila. For McDonald's, majority of our business now are through our drive-through and our delivery service. Of course, we're still not anywhere near where we were in 2019, and we're definitely not maximizing the full extent of our real estate because we're not, dining is limited right now. But at the very least, the pivot into these new segments, or refocus into these new segments, have helped us at least survive during this crisis. And last but not the least, of course, with travelers, we've had record-breaking VIP business during this pandemic. So there's really a lot of opportunities there. And lastly, our last pillar is financial flexibility. And I think that due to the strength of our balance sheet and the resilience of our businesses, we now see a lot of opportunities to be able to tap the capital markets for future expansions. And so with that, we have decided this year we will be launching MREIT, which we hope will one day be one of the largest office REITs in Southeast Asia. And as well as later on this year, we are aiming for a secondary listing of Emperador at the Singapore Stock Exchange. So, despite the challenges which still exist till today, there are some pockets of opportunities that we are taking advantage of.
Well, thank you for that overview. It's very interesting how you quickly adapted by moving quickly to the digital space amid this crisis. But if you don't mind, let's immediately zero in on one of the very few bright spots in the market these days. In fact, it's the only one of the few things giving excitement to the market. And I'm talking about real estate investment trust, which lately have been gaining traction in the country, even though I think we're still behind Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore, I think. No? Now, MegaWorld, the country's premier township developer, where you are on top of strategy, it is also the biggest contributor to Alliance Global's bottom line, will be launching its REIT, which promises to be the biggest in the country by that time. In the first place, before we go to MREIT, what is the significance to the economy of successive REITs taking off? Yours will be the fourth in just a little over a year. And property has not been spared by this pandemic crisis. What's the significance of this happening?
So yeah, it's a very exciting time right now for the capital markets, despite the challenges. I think our stock market Philippine Stock Exchange has had several IPOs this year. It's one of their busier years, actually. And as far as REITs are concerned, it's a very exciting instrument right now. As you know, it's been an 11-year journey from the time the REIT law was passed all the way to today. And that's why you see one REIT after the other in succession being launched. We are generally, very excited about this. We do believe in the strength and resilience of our capital markets. And, we do believe there's a lot of liquidity in the market today, which is why we see the opportunity in this. If you allow me to just talk a little bit about REIT, we are launching MREIT by the end of September. And essentially, MREIT will have 10 assets, office assets, grade A office assets, and these assets were purely for BPO. Now, 8 out of the 10 assets are in Metro Manila, which is still the center of our economy, with 2 assets in Iloilo, which is a high growth area. Now, half of our assets are in Port Bonifacio, which is still the premier address for the BPO sector, and still commands the best occupancy and rent. And essentially, all of our assets, and I think this is what makes it also special, is all of our assets are located within our township concept. And that township is actually something that Mega World has pioneered in for the last 20 years. We have 26 townships all over the country. But for this, featuring 3 of our most matured township. And if anything, you can see how townships work. It's really a very compelling reason or very compelling value for the assets, because the assets sit in a location where they can take full advantage of the ecosystem that exists around it. And that means, the live, work, play lifestyle, having an abundance of housing options for the employees, having an abundance of amenities. And this really forms a very compelling reason for our clients and their employees to be located in our townships. And that's what creates the real value for these assets. On another note, Mega World is currently the largest office developer in the country. We have 1.4 million square meters of office spaces currently operating right now, and we're only putting in 16% of that into this REIT. So you can imagine there's a long runway of growth right now to grow this REIT. And while Mega World continues to build 100,000 square, before the pandemic hit, we used to build about 100,000 square meters of office space every year. Of course, during the pandemic, we've reduced that to half, but next year we will resume that again. So by 2030, Mega World will probably be around 2 million square meters already. While, as we build more office spaces, we will also continue to inject mature office spaces into the REIT, right? And that's why MREIT will, double its size in 3 years' time, and probably hit 1 million square meters by 2027 to 2030. So really, the growth, the REIT allows both Mega World and MREIT to grow continuously, right? So essentially, as an investor, you're invested in that growth, but also you are also in a way invested in our township ecosystem. And because we are floating 49%, we're allowing for greater market participation into this REIT. And I think that's, to answer your question, that I think that gives significant value to our investors.
Your REIT will be, at least initially, or maybe it will be the anchor, heavy on your office assets. can you just explain this focus, especially given the challenges to this particular property segment amid the pandemic?
I think that the Philippines office sector in general has been, I think, the most resilient among the region. No? In other in other cities in Asia, you've seen office rents drop or vacancies increase. No? But that's not the case here in the Philippines because our office sector primarily caters to the business process outsourcing industry, and the BPO industry actually has been one of the most resilient industries during this pandemic. In fact, last year, it was probably the only industry that one of the few industries rather that grew its revenues and also grew in terms of headcount. No, so you can imagine it's the only industry that's been hiring new people. So this shows real strength and resilience in this particular sector. No? And that's why we believe that this factor creates a very compelling reason or compelling proposition for this REIT. Looking forward, our outlook for office sector continues to be optimistic. There has been renewed take-ups already as early as this year, especially from sectors like travel and tourism, which is on a rebound right now in the US and in Europe. So whenever there's a rebound, a lot of the jobs get shipped to the Philippines as well. And that's happened all the time. No? Even when there's been a recession globally, you see years after that, during the recovery, a lot of outsourcing jobs coming to the Philippines. So we have a lot to look forward to. And if anything, this REIT actually represents really future growth as well of the sector.
Yes, thank you for that. Well, property analysts say REITs will be instrumental in diversifying growth in the property sector. So I understand your anchor will be your office assets, and that is anchored on the BPO sector, which has been resilient through many crises. Will there be other kinds of properties that will be eventually added to MREIT's portfolio, and what's in the pipeline?
It's going to be 80 to 90% offices, catering to BPOs, and if ever technology as well. No, of course, sometimes we do have mixed use developments where we have a little bit of retail on the ground floor, so that accounts for the 10%. We normally, when we put in an asset, we put it in its entirety. We don't like to cut assets up and put bits and pieces of it. We put it in there. But we envision this to be, a great majority of offices and BPO offices at that. Yeah.
Okay, let's zoom out now for a while. And can you now talk about pandemic-fueled shifts that you have noticed in the real estate sector, and how has MegaWorld adjusted to these shifts, particularly in the office segment? Like, what will characterize MegaWorld's future office developments? For instance, I noticed the International Finance Center in Uptown Bonifacio.
Well, one of the things that I think is also very unique to MegaWorld, and we continue to refine, is really our township model. And that's one thing to note, that all of our office assets are actually within our townships. No, and I think if anything, during this pandemic, we've seen how the township model has become quite ideal, no, and quite compelling. If you live and work in the same place, not having to have to travel too far, during this time, I think it's quite ideal and optimal. No? So, we've seen the advantages really during. I think the advantages have been magnified rather during this pandemic, and it's been an ideal place for BPO companies to work in. No? So this is the model we try to continue to refine, as we've seen various advantages on it already. And moving forward, I think it's really finding how we can connect things more seamlessly, both physically but also digitally. No, I think that's one of the things that we are now really studying, and we've started to do during this time of pandemic. With regards to the International Finance Center, this is our newest building, in Fort Bonifacio, in Uptown Bonifacio rather. It's seamlessly connected to the rest of the township. It's actually in the middle of the township, and we have some prime tenants there. No, I can't mention it yet, but we have some. We will be announcing who our key tenants there will be. We have good take up as well. And
but
it's
from
also
what sectors are they? May I ask? At least.
this is also BPO sector, right?
Mm.
Finance sector, specifically. No? So there's been a lot of take up in that respect. No? So, but that's the, and it's of course this building is LEED certified as well. And I think moving forward, all of our buildings actually will be LEED certified.
There's also a real big shift in retail as vendors pursue consumers online. How will that affect your mall spaces?
Yeah, I think that I think that there will come a time where the two will really have to coexist. There are really certain things that I think you cannot replicate on an online space. No, of course, ordering things online, having things delivered to your home, that poses really a whole slew of conveniences, right? It's very convenient. No? But I think that ultimately people will still be looking for that experience of being served, being attended to, and just the experience of human interaction. No? So although I think that the digital space has really thrived during this pandemic because of the restrictions, I think though when restrictions do open up, there will be habits that will be kept, but ultimately it will be a merging of two worlds.
Yeah. All businesses now are on recovery mode. And when you say recovery mode, they're looking at the post-pandemic world. So what is MegaWorld's strategic focus in that kind of world after the pandemic, given the expected stay of work from home arrangements and rising residential sales outside Metro Manila?
First is on the work from home. It's on a personal note. I think it's still a challenging proposition and not completely ideal. I say this from our group's experiences as well. Although we have, as I mentioned, we have migrated quite well to a work from home or a hybrid work from home arrangement. It's not ideal in a long-term perspective. I think being in an office, nothing beats being in an office and having interaction with people, and then that helps to develop a culture. When I say this, I also refer also to the BPO sector. I think that in a larger context, it's actually also challenging to be in a work from home status, simply because there's a lot of challenges. Mainly first, the most obvious is infrastructure, right? Lack of internet connection in the urban center, in the residential areas. But more importantly, I think there are issues as well, given the characteristics of generally of a lot of the homes in the Philippines or in Metro Manila. Homes in Metro Manila are rather smaller in nature, and they're inhabited by more than one family, in most cases, or more than one people, more people, right? So, it's very hard to be productive in a kind of environment. Not to mention, of course, the fact that data privacy is an issue. So overall, I think it's going to be a challenge. And I think it's a good stopgap measure at this time to have work from home because of the restrictions. But in an industry that's guarded by a very high level of service level, it's very difficult to sustain such a concept. No? So, I think though, like I said, what we are looking at right now as a group is, how do we continue to refine our township, and how do we bring the township model to other parts of the country? It's been, we've seen firsthand how the concept can actually become an economic catalyst to certain regions outside. No, for example, we have a good experience in Iloilo City. We came in there more than 10 years ago, and when we went in there, the economy was primarily agricultural, but we did see a potential in Iloilo because we saw that there's quite a number of, they had the most number of graduates in all of Western Visayas, and that we saw was actually one of the main criteria for a robust BPO industry. Aside from that, of course, Iloilo has good infrastructure, a nice airport, good roads, sufficient power. So we took a bet and we developed its first CBD. And right now, the BPO sector is a major contributor to our local economy. In fact, we are about 70% of the market there. We have 70% market share in Iloilo, and everywhere you go, you'll see BPO buildings being constructed. In fact, there's a shortage of space now in Iloilo. Now, we hope that we can replicate this in other parts of the country. We believe that we can create inclusive economic opportunities through our township developments. So one of this is through BPO sector, of course, but another way also is through the tourism sector. We still believe in tourism. Of course, it's unthinkable now because of all the restrictions. But moving forward, I think the Philippines has still a lot to offer, and we do look forward to a rebound, as we have seen in Europe or in the US. There's a huge travel rebound right after the restrictions have been lifted. I think this is going to be the same here. So we continue to invest in that sector. We continue to build rooms currently. MegaWorld Alliance Global, actually, which includes MegaWorld Travelers and all its subsidiaries, currently is the largest hotel developer as well, with 6,500 room keys all over the country. We will continue to invest in this sector, and we will continue to develop tourism estates as well, and in other parts of the Philippines.
Well, they say that crisis spawns innovation, prods innovation, and that some of our greatest inventions were born out of necessity during war or other crises. And they're saying that, in a small organization, it's easy to innovate. But in a large organization like yours, how do you make sure that innovation carries through despite your size?
It's a good question. Well, I think it starts with leadership, no, with the mindset of the leadership, no. I think if you look at all our companies, we've tried to be market innovators in our own right, no. With the property sector, we were the first to have BPOs, actually. With Eastwood City, we were the first to build cyber parks. We were the first to build townships as well. And we were the first to even set up an international office, for example. So I think that innovation is really in the DNA Mega World. Yeah, I think Emperador has been performing very, very well even during this pandemic. I think we owe a lot of that to the global expansion, for our global expansions. Mainly growth that we've seen in Europe, in Asia, and in China. But I think that the spirit of all that as well is really the market innovation as well of the company. We're always developing new products, and we're always introducing them to the market. And I think that's been, again, also a great part of how Emperador operates. And same goes with McDonald's, for example. We are, this year, although we're still far off from pre-pandemic, but I think we performed relatively well this year due to a few market innovating products that we've launched. For example, Taste of Korea or the BTS meals, which have actually created significant lifts our sales despite the challenges in all these restrictions, not having dine-in, for example, and all that. So I think that, as I said, that innovation is really in our DNA. And I think that when a crisis like this does happen, again, there are opportunities, that you can see, and we've already kind of unraveled a lot of these opportunities as we go forward, and we continue to refine it and improve and grow, build upon this foundation that we've created.
Okay, now let's look a little bit to the immediate future. Can you just tell us what issues or factors is your company watching, and how could these factors affect your businesses?
Yeah, well, the impending concern will still be always this the pandemic. We continue to be, to keep a close eye on this. Of course, I think that the vaccination initiatives have progressed, and we're well underway to be, we're well underway to herd immunity. But this continues to be a very challenging environment to operate in. We do, like I said, we do have our small wins, but generally speaking, it's still very, very uncertain and still quite challenging. So we have to see where this goes, if there are new variances or a new occurrence or even a new virus that comes out of this. You never know. Now that we've seen this happen, we realize how, I guess, connected this world is. Any given time, another pandemic can happen, right? So that's something that concerns us, and we do hope that we can recover soon, and hopefully by the fourth quarter going to next year. Another, I guess, another interesting thing to watch out for is, I guess, elections next year, right? So that's all. I mean, obviously, new administration, there's always new policies. It'd be interesting to see if the new administration will also continue the good work that's been done by this administration, especially on the build strategy. That I think is very important for our country to continue this momentum on the infrastructure front. So those are the two things, I guess, that are, I think, very interesting to look at this time.
Yes, you cited the next administration. We'll go back to that. But I just rattle off a few things on the macro picture. The macro picture is not that encouraging. Inflation is picking up. Economic growth will not be as fast as it was from 2010 to 2018. ADB and the other multilaterals are saying that there's going to be a very deep problem on the employment front. And then the central bank's own consumer and business expectation surveys, both for the next 3 months and for the next 12 months, show very slow recovery underway. Also, economic managers of the government earlier this month, I think, moved by at least 3 months the expectation for economic recovery to go back to pre-pandemic or 2019 levels to end 2022 or first quarter 2023. And that was before it. They were saying by mid 2022 or right after that, okay na. What is I'm just interested, what is the view on the ground for your own businesses? Is this reflected in your experience in your businesses, and how does this outlook impact your planning? I noted, for instance, that your capex for this year, a bulk of that, among others, is new residential property. So, do you see any? What kind of recovery are you seeing among your customers?
Yeah. Well, our capex this year, and similarly the last year, is pretty much the same, but it's only about half of what we were spending, of course, in 2019. So that's reflection of a more cautious stance. No, capex for next year would really be highly dependent, as I said, on the vaccine rollout. I think that's the solution to this problem, as we have seen also in other countries. No, so that's why on our end we are focusing. We one of our pillars is earnings diversity, and so we've kind of refocused or pivot our businesses into new things, or to new markets, or expanded existing markets like that where we are operating in. For example, in Emperador, although the local business is still doing relatively well, we've decided to focus a lot of our attention now on the global business. No? That's why you've seen our revenues from China grow 200% last year, and it continues to break records until this year. So, and we're seeing now tremendous growth in Europe, Spain, and in North America as well. And so in the Philippines, you're right. We still see a robust demand for real estate, but I think a lot of it is geared towards outside Metro Manila. A lot of people are buying outside Metro Manila. We're very surprised at the level of sales that we're getting in places like Iloilo, as I mentioned, Cavite, even Pampanga, even Bacolod. So these are areas that I think are huge growth areas and pockets of opportunities. We've never seen tremendous growth there. Of course, just to answer your question, what I think is that I think the demand today is, well, first off, I think this is mostly a health crisis, no, that became an economic crisis. But I think that there's still liquidity in the market, and I think that what's happening is this is more of an economic suppression due to restrictions, and I'll tell you why. Because I recall that July, they opened. I remember that they had there was 2 weeks where they allowed children to come out, right? And although the guideline was they were just to be outdoors, and if you were to go to your malls, it had to be in the outdoors areas. Immediately that same day, we saw foot traffic and the sales of our food and beverage outlets surge. No, in fact, some of them on a daily basis were back to like almost pre-pandemic sales, and that was an immediate reaction, no? when the restriction was lifted. No? So I think that what's happening right now is because of the restrictions, everything demand is being suppressed. I would say even artificially. But if you were to release us from these restrictions, if they were to release the restrictions or take out these restrictions, I think we will have a whole period again of what we call revenge spending. No, and you don't have to look far. You can look to China, see this. Look at the U.S. Everything there is back to normal. I think we will be there as well. No, and I think that maybe today what you're seeing is a reflection just of the current situation, but doesn't reflect really what the future holds for us.
Yeah, that is a very interesting observation about that brief moment of revenge spending that you were talking about. What would be your priorities towards next year and also in the immediate post-pandemic period for your group?
Yeah. I think we still remain optimistic for the future. As I said, we were only spending half of what our capex did last year and this year, are roughly about only half of what our capex were pre-pandemic. But moving ahead, I think we are still on an expansion mode. Globally, we will continue to expand our capacity for making our whiskey products and our single malt. We, also continue to expand our global presence in key markets like China, North America, Europe, and of course Latin America. So it's full steam ahead for Emperador, um, especially post listing, no, this year. Locally, we hope to continue building more offices and more townships. I think one thing to note about the Philippines is about 80% of the country still, remains to be underdeveloped. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunities to go out outside Metro Manila to the countryside and promote economic development there. And we believe that our unique brand of townships enable us to do this, no, to create jobs, no. One of the things that we noted is that for every 5 square meters of space, of office space that we build, we are actually able to create two jobs, no, for night shift and day shift for for the
Interesting.
BPO sector. So our program is to continue building. We see a lot of the BPOs now they do this hub and spoke model, um, which means that they will keep their headquarters in Metro Manila, but create branches in different parts, and they need to be kind of in different parts of the Philippines. So we see some opportunities there. Um, um, but of course, when they go into a new part, they want to be, of course, in a secure township. Because township concept obviously creates the right atmosphere and the ambiance. It also gives them already sufficient abundance of housing options for employees and abundance of amenities as well. So that remains to be a very attractive proposition for VPO. So we want to expand. We are actually looking to launch at least 3 more townships between now and next year, um, in various parts of the Philippines. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we are also very bullish about tourism.
Mhm.
Um, Even though right now the situation is still quite bleak, no, but that we see that as quickly improving by next year when the recovery does happen. You're gonna see a huge rebound, I think, in tourism. I mean, if you ask anyone, that's the first thing anyone's gonna. If once the restrictions are lifted, that's the first thing everyone's going to do is travel. So that's something that we want to continue to invest in. For McDonald's, we want to build. We're planning to build 30 more stores this year.
30,
So
30, 30.
30, yeah, 30. Mostly these are all freestanding stores, of course, because right
Uh,
now our business is predominantly drive-through and delivery. But yeah, the program still continues to exist for McDonald's. We also looking in the future. We want to continue to invest in technology. um this is we've already enabled ourselves in all our businesses, on many fronts. We will continue to expand this capabilities, I think one thing is the way we are now interacting with our customers. I
mhm.
think there's a stark difference between now and the pre-pandemic days, so we hope to be able to continue to build on that. And last but not the least, we also want to invest in human capital development, education, not as a business. Okay, we don't
Mhm.
want to go into education as a business, but as a way of supporting, for example, the industry. No, one example of this is last month we launched an initiative with De La Salle University for the creation of the Dr. Andrew Tan Data Science Institute, which will have its campus in McKinley Hill. We are investing in the future, and we hope to be able to develop the next, generation of Filipino data scientists, no? And be able to upskill the workers in our BPO sector.
You did say that you'll be building 3 new townships. Or where will these be located?
Can't mention one of the details, no, but it's gonna be mostly in Luzon, naman. So yeah.
Okay. Going back to one remark you made about factors that you're watching, let's just step momentarily into the political sphere, because we're headed right into elections and for a change in administration. So I have to ask, what policies or reforms would you want to see in the next administration to help businesses emerge from this crisis? Because as you know, recovery is going to take quite a long time. And now even the government, which is optimistic, is looking at 2023 as the start of as recovery. Are there any reform policies you hope to see in the next administration?
I think that this current administration has done quite a number of great initiatives already. The tax reform bills are very progressive. So I think that that's really credited to this current administration. I think that this administration also, and I think more importantly, as I mentioned, is really this build program, which has already started gaining momentum during this particular administration. Obviously, it's it takes at least 2 to 3 administrations for there to be sufficient traction to really for you to see a major difference. But although this administration, you're already seeing quite a lot, especially on the creation of a lot of these highways, new roadways, and of course some new regional airports as well. So I think we'd like to hope that this momentum continues throughout the next administration, because I think that among other things, what is badly needed is that what is badly needed right now is that we are able to connect our islands here in the Philippines, but also connect the Philippines to the rest of the world, right? So I think those are the we would look forward to really seeing those things happen.
Okay, Mr. Tan, personally, what have you learned about making decisions and managing in a crisis now that the pandemic has been with us for more than a year? I mean, has anything changed permanently in the way you and your group operate?
Yeah, I think what I've learned is how to be an emphatic leader. Emphatic leadership is definitely important. Empathy is very important during this time of crisis, and I think that moving forward, it should be a beacon of a major beacon of your leadership as well. No, I think that we needed to understand how we can create a strong support system for our employees. That's something that, and especially during this time of crisis, we also, we're also big on community, right? Because we build townships and all that. So also how to be to create a stronger sense of community. But of course, that's all interrelated, because we needed to protect as well our people who are on the ground, precisely because we are managing large-scale communities. No? So those go hand in hand, really. So empathic leadership, I think, is just such an important thing right now. I mean, as a company, I think being profit-centric is still important, but I think you should now look beyond just a singular bottom line. I think moving forward, we should really look at triple bottom line, which includes, which is profit, of course, environmental footprint, and social impact. No, So I think this will be our guiding principle as leaders in our various companies moving forward.
Right. Well, just to end our conversation today, and perhaps with a parting message for our viewers, how different do you think will 2022 be compared to the early stages of the pandemic and before the pandemic in terms of the way your companies do business? Also, how do you see the final 3 months of the year for your businesses? Please.
Okay. Next year should be better, right? Well, let's start with the next final 3 months. I hope that the vaccination supply arrives, and they are starting to arrive in big numbers, and we are vaccinating huge amounts of people every day now. So I think that will continue. We envision, population protection maybe by October, and maybe herd immunity hopefully by December. And so that will give us really a great start of the year for next year. Next year is obviously going to be exciting. It's an election year. Generally speaking, there's always an uptick in consumption during election years. And it's just an exciting year generally. So I hope that I guess the recovery timed with an election year combined will give us really a good 2022. I think people are yearning to go back to the old normal. But I think that certain habits that have been created already during the pandemic will somewhat, stay, or remain. I think that, again, as I mentioned, I think how we interact with our customers will now fundamentally change, given the even after the pandemic is over. So I think though I'm more optimistic for next year. I think the recovery might happen faster than expected. So that's our insight. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your ideas and insights with us today, Mr. Tan.
Thank you, really, thank you.
And that ends our conversation with Alliance Global CEO, Mr. Kevin Andrew Tan. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this dialogue. Thanks everyone for watching, and we hope to see you next time.
Welcome to the exclusive world of BPI Preferred, where you're taken care of financially, no matter your preference. You have a relationship manager that knows you and gives you personalized service with priority handling, even over the phone. We introduce you to a diverse range of privileged experiences. Feel the care. Feel the privilege. BPI Preferred.
What if your everyday is easier? What if your tasks are faster? What if you never have to chase due dates ever? What if your life is safer? What if your dreams are higher? What if kaya mo na? GCash gives you secure payments, real-time money transfers, accessible financial services, exclusive deals, and a full suite of business solutions para kaya mo na sumabay sa takbo ng buhay. Kaya mo na to stay connected. Kaya mo na magbayad anytime, anywhere. Kaya mo na mag-buy and sell. Kaya mo na to get exclusive deals. Kaya mo na magpera padala. Kaya mo na gawing safe ang future. Kaya mo na abutin ang pangarap. Kaya mo na makatulong, magbigay ng pag-asa. Kaya mo, Gcash mo.
Sa pagpatak ng ulan, sa pagsubok na dumaraan, may tapang kang harap, lilipad kang may pangarap. Lilipad kang may pangarap.
Kailan ay di mag-iisa, susulong ka ng may kasama, may tapang kang haharap.
Lilipad kang may pangarap. Lilipad kang may pangarap. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na. Simula na ng bukas. Ngayon na, ngayon na, ngayon na.
Sumpay sa pagbabago,
Harapin ang bagong mundo. Simula na ng bukas. Simula na ng bukas ngayon.
Stand out with Copper Mask, the mask of the stars.
Para sa bayan, gagawin, ibubuhos lahat ng galing. Kung tulong-tulong, kayang gawin. Para sa bayan, gagawin.
QC is pro-business. In QC, we promote. We provide. And we protect businesses. The location of choice for investors and entrepreneurs.
bukas.